Hello, welcome back to the PoddiMouths podcast. I am Peyton Cubic, and this is where my dad and his friend John talk about random stuff in life or the things they found on the internet. I hope you enjoy listening to this episode as much as I did. Here they are now.
Go! Hi, John. Go.
Hi, Nick. What's happening?
Hi, John. Not much.
I like your Smash hat.
Thanks. Well, I had my pile of hats over there, and I'm like, which one should I wear today? But I don't have all of my favorite hats up here. Just
because
my
I'm much
least
older.
favorite.
What does the Smash refer to? To what?
Smash is Smashville. So it's hockey, Nashville hockey. It's Predators.
Got it.
Yeah. So they refer to the hockey ecosystem here as Smashville.
I like what they do there. I like that.
I do too, except for the catfish. I don't want to carry a catfish strapped to my leg so I can throw it on the ice during the playoffs.
Yeah, I would say. Well, I'm not sure that it's worse than an octopus. Which
probably not.
Has happened in the past.
Yeah. Yes, many times. Yeah. Many times. So, John, you're not in your usual spot. Where are you?
Not in my office at home. I am with some friends in North Carolina, and Lisa and I had planned this for some time, and you and I got into this. Oh my gosh, we got the 4th coming up. We got just a whole bunch of plates in the air spinning.
A lot of traveling.
Yeah, well, there has been, and we'll talk about that in just a bit, because I think that's what happens sometimes. Life gets in the way, and so for our regular listeners and viewers, thank you for being loyal, and we're just we'll do them as we can do them, I guess, as we always have. But well, this is one of those where it's fun to do it on the road.
Exactly, but I'm sure some of our older, and I don't mean by age, just the people that have listened for the longest time, realize that's just a given when it comes to the PoddiMouths. But most of our new listeners, all one of them.
No, there are several more.
There are several more. I jest, folks. I jest. But most of them probably don't know that John and I do so little planning that if we were really good at podcasting, we'd probably pre-record like 3 episodes right before we know we're not going to be able to do it. But no, that just doesn't happen. That's not really the PoddiMouths way. It's not. It's not.
Well,
you'll grow to love.
It's also, well, maybe it's also the thing about having you, especially a full-time gig, and mine is a little less full-time, but it certainly is no less
still
involved, it seems like. So yeah. It doesn't always work out the way we planned, and we've done that before. We go, okay, let's just knock out a couple of them, and then we go, okay, well, we were on a roll.
We were on a roll. Yeah. Now we don't have anything to talk about. It'd be just us sitting here staring at each other.
With the same clothes.
Clothes. Exactly.
We'll do that maybe next time. Anyway, North Carolina, nice trip. I have some, just some really good shots. You can't see it behind me. This is the cabin or cottage that we're in. But just off to my left. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm going to try. I don't know if I can do it any justice, but it'll probably not.
Oh, it's very smoky.
Smoky mountains, and my goodness, it's just beautiful to wake up to. And so that's what we've been doing for the last few days. We'll head back home tomorrow, and in the meantime, just kind of enjoying that. Enjoying actually having teeth, because there are a lot of people here that don't, and I would say that some of it's because
it makes life easier. If
the proximity.
If you don't have teeth, you don't have to brush them.
Think of the money you would save on toothpaste.
I know.
So here's the boys and girls: ignore your teeth, and they'll go away.
Exactly. See, if you've nothing else, you learn a lot when you're listening to the PoddiMouths. The PoddiMouths podcast.
Yes,
that is
so
us.
We're up. I don't know. I'm going to guess probably 3,000 feet or so. Getting up here, it's like a shale driveway, and there are all sorts of twisty roads. Switchbacks was the word I was looking for. Thank you. And man, it's just
I'm here for
crazy
you, John.
Getting up here. Some of them. So yesterday we went to. Well, some of us went to the bottom of the driveway, which down to the main road, and then walked back up. I made it. I probably went 2/3 of the way down and said, screw this, because one of them was like a 45-degree angle. And because it was my first time on this particular one walking, I'm going, I have no idea because one of them, okay, coming down is pretty easy, but we're going to have to spin around and walk back up again. And holy, A, out of shape, and B, I couldn't believe how these hills. So, I decided to walk backwards for part of the way because it was easier. But yeah, coming back up, I was sweating like a stuck pig. And
I bet.
Yeah, great workout.
If you're anything like me, you don't like sweat. I do not like to sweat.
You wouldn't have liked it yesterday, that's for sure.
No. Yeah. Well, I think the weather down here has just been, and you're from Florida, so look who I'm talking to. But the weather here in the last couple of weeks, you just walk outside and start sweating. So Jen,
it is
not this past weekend, but the weekend before, had her performance for the studio, and it was one of those days where we just walked outside. And I was wearing, because I had to kind of dress up, I was wearing a nice pair of jeans and boots and, nice shirt. And I just started just beads of sweat. It was horrible. And I wasn't doing anything.
Yeah. I am hip to that because, well, as you know, anytime you're doing a gig with like a sport jacket or anything on like that, and it's somewhere warm, I walked out to my car after doing a seminar session in Phoenix, Scottsdale, actually. Mm-hmm. The car temperature when I got to it in the parking lot read 130 degrees.
Oh,
and so
yuck.
So I'm wearing a sport coat and carrying my briefcase, and got out to the car instantly, obviously, just covered. Well, and not as much down there because it's
dry.
It's a dry heat, so our ovens. Anyway, but it was pretty crazy about how hot it was, and here, any place with humidity, as you're enjoying right now, it's just instantaneous.
Yeah, it's not as bad here right now. We have cooled off a little bit, but just like you, last week, the whole week, I spent up in, well, I wouldn't say up in the mountains, but technically in the Smokies, sort of. We were in Bristol, Tennessee, or Bristol, Virginia, depending on which side of the street you're on. Mm-hmm. And we actually stayed right downtown Bristol. So we stayed in a hotel that was on the Virginia side of the street, but we spent most of our time on the Tennessee side because that's where most of the restaurants are, because sales tax is less. And it was a fascinating, fun trip. I was working. Jen was taking a break because of after the performance, she had the week off. So we got a suite at the Sessions Hotel in Bristol. If you guys get a chance, look it up. It was very nice. It was a very historic building, and you know how much I love historic buildings. So it was it was a loft feel, and it's a Marriott property. So obviously I used my points and did my suite upgrade. So we had a nice
one of the autograph models or whatever they call it.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. And we worked a lot, but we still had fun. So like on the 4th, we because it was during the 4th of July, we went down to the Lost State Distillery, which is on the Tennessee side, but right next to the sign that if anyone's familiar with Bristol, there's a big metal sign that crosses the street on State Street. One side says Virginia, one side says Tennessee, and it sits right there in one of the historic buildings. We got a little tour of the place and bought some bourbon and some vodka and some gin. So that was fun. And, here's the biggest part though, John. And this is something I've seen when I travel a little bit, but not, I think it's a little bit more apparent when I'm by myself versus at least with my wife. My wife and I go to dinner here in Nashville. We'll get, a cocktail, usually only one, but a cocktail, an appetizer, a meal, and a dessert. In Nashville, I would say probably the vast majority of the time with tip, we're spending $120, $130 for the two of us. In Bristol, we did the exact same thing, but double the number of cocktails. So, at least 2, maybe 3. We're walking, why not? And appetizer, dinners, dessert. The most expensive meal we had the entire week, and that was the 3 cocktail night. After tip, $63.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
was that Burger King or what?
No, this was at it was at a bistro. Wow. And Jen had a steak. Jen got a steak.
What the heck?
I know. It was crazy. It was
So
absolutely
they're
crazy.
insulated apparently somehow from what's going on everywhere else in the country.
Everywhere else. Well, it's just, I mean, they're going to scare people. And actually, so my wife's cousin, her husband actually works in Bristol. He's from Bristol and he works in Bristol. And he was telling me, because I was fascinated, again, coming from Nashville, where Jen, trying to find space for the studio, can't find space because it's either way too big and too expensive or way too small and too expensive.
Mm.
So we're walking down the street downtown and there was a bunch of for rent and for sale signs in all the buildings, which worried me. And I'd been to Bristol many years ago, but I don't remember really any of it. And so I asked his name is Kevin. I asked Kevin, I said, what's going on in Bristol? Why are all these signs up? And he's like, oh, Bristol's growing so fast. It's great. And we're getting so many people to move in. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, it's wonderful. And I'm like, well, with all the rent signs and stuff, he said, yeah, most of them are restaurants and they don't last very long for some reason in Bristol. And part of it is probably, I don't know if it's because they're too cheap or if people are still perceiving them as too expensive. But the ones that have been around for the longest time, like the ones we went to, are not that expensive. So I just think they just have it figured out. They just can't. They know that they can't go any higher because the market doesn't support it.
But you would
that would be my guess.
You would think with a Marriott autograph property that they would be, and again, maybe not that hotel, but just in general, anything in that area.
Yeah,
you would think that would bring some decent.
And I think it's going to get better. And one of the things, so he works for a construction company. One of the things that they're building is a new Hard Rock Cafe casino in Bristol.
Well, jeez,
yeah.
So
I'm thinking it's gonna boom here pretty soon. Would be my guess, because the hotel's not done yet. The casino's open, but the hotel's not done. So I think he's, like he said, it's growing. I just found it fascinating, and that's, like I said, it's not the first time I've noticed that. North Carolina, which I was at the week before last, and I'm going to be back later next week. But whenever I go out there, it's cheaper for me to have dinner. I just didn't have anything to compare to because I don't usually eat by myself here in Nashville. But I've made that comment a few times to coworkers. It's just so much cheaper everywhere other than Nashville. I find it very, very interesting.
That's going to be Nashville. That's
it is. It's a big city.
You've said, well, it is, but it's also growing so dramatically. Yeah. And where is a lot of that growth coming from? When you think about that, they're used to paying a lot more money. So it just
they are.
It just kind of follows that the numbers are going to increase.
We have a mutual friend that I work with, who just moved here for work from Seattle. And he uses gas as a comparison. We're at $3. I think I filled up today. I filled up the truck today. I think it was $3.40. I'm going to say $3.40 to fill it up. Which to me, I'm looking at that going, God, gas is so expensive. He's coming from Seattle going, gas is free. Because it's so much cheaper than what he's used to spending on gas.
West Coast.
So it's all perspective. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's West Coast. And that is part of it too. I mean, I remember going to flying in and out of LAX, which you have done. And
yes, many times.
Gassing up. Usually my flights out of there coming home were in the morning because you want to do that and gain you're losing time going east. So the earlier you can get out, the more reasonable the time of arrival at home in Central or
in theory.
Time. And so I would get up early, make sure I get gas in because I don't want to pay whatever the exorbitant prices are at the rental car company. But gas up at some station at 5 a.m. And I go and it's like anywhere near the airport. What? It's like $7.50 or $8 a gallon.
Yep.
Okay, well I'm glad I didn't use more than a few gallons of gas because whoa, it's just incredible. Yeah. And then go to Canada, and then it's by the liter. And when you do the math, 3.8 liters to the gallon, oh my gosh, it's also
it's insane.
Extraordinarily expensive.
Yeah. Still cheaper here in North America than it is in a lot of the other parts of the world. But, it's still, when you're used to something, and that's the key right there, when you're used to something, you see it go up, and you start to pucker. It's
We're going to
it's
talk
crazy.
a little bit more about that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
About
I
puckering?
want to make sure we talk a little bit more about that, having to do with, let's just say, policy, because I think that's going to make a difference, right? That's going to make a difference in how things go, especially being energy independent, which we are no longer.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing: we're most of my friends have stopped calling it policy, and are now referring to most of it as elder abuse.
Okay, well, it could be that too.
Yeah.
We'll table that just for a second, but
I'm chalking it up to elder abuse.
Yes, we'll get back to that. I did want to just touch real quickly on a couple of things that, let's see, I just jotted down here, which is weird for me.
You actually prepared
whatsoever. Well,
that's what
I
happens
wanted
when you go on vacation.
You mentioned right. You mentioned Independence Day, and I was kind of surprised because I didn't even really think about it. How much are we going to run into in North Carolina? Well, we planned to drive. The last time we were here, we brought the Harleys and rode everywhere. And if you don't know, for our listeners and viewers, if you have not seen the roads here, as you said, Nick, the switchbacks, and they're just beautiful mountain roads and high quality, and no potholes. And if you're from Detroit area, that means there are no potholes, which you're not used to at all. Because man, poor Detroiters, oh my gosh, that whole area, 275 and 696, it's just constant. Not just there, but that's the one that sticks out.
In the Detroit area, what you're saying is that anyone, you can figure out who's a drunk driver by the folks who are driving straight versus swerving.
Yeah,
the ones who are drunk are the ones driving straight.
You'll get pulled over for straight driving in Detroit. That is true. But it's really not just Detroit. It's throughout Michigan, but Southeast especially, where I have lots of experience. Anyway, what we were kind of surprised by was all the people who were around here. We went 2, 3, 4 years ago when we had the bikes to this place called Klingman's Dome, and it's like the top of a mountain range, and they have a nice walking area and a couple of plaques and things like that. It's a really cool place. We thought, hey, wouldn't it be fun to drive up there? The traffic was incredible, and these are these twisting mountain roads, and we're going by Class C RVs, and they're big 30-foot plus vehicles. They're going on these crazy roads and cutting over the center line, and awesome. But I couldn't believe the traffic that was up there. We got within maybe a mile of the top, and we just said, forget it, and just parked and spun around eventually. Took a couple of shots up there, camera shots. But
I'm glad you specified what kind of shots.
We did a couple shots and then hopped back in the car. But driving in the car, it's not as fun, but it was just amazing how many people were up there. It was thousands and thousands, and it was interesting, the mix of people too. In Florida, you have old people and rednecks pretty much, and I'm not going to tell you where I fit in, but
is there a category for both?
There might be. Well, no, there aren't that many elderly rednecks because they, hey, y'all watch this. And that's the last thing.
Here, hold my beer.
Yeah, exactly. But no offense, rednecks, I love you. It was just a weird mix of people, and just a crazy amount of folks. So anyway, we spun around, and it was just busy, and we ended up stopping at a restaurant and grabbing a bite to eat, and had an enjoyable time. But that particular attraction, I don't know what it was. It was just crazy busy.
Busy.
Anyway, did you run into
summer
busyness in
no.
Bristol?
Well, yes and no. So everyone said things were busy, but we're coming from Nashville. For us, it was not busy. Wasn't busy at all.
Dead.
Yeah, we not dead. I mean, it was, things were happening, things were going on, but it was just not as crowded, and you didn't feel like everyone was invading your space, and it was
Did you
lovely.
Have wait at the restaurants?
No, never. Well, we also eat early compared to most people. So,
Well,
we're going
I'm
at
from Florida.
5:30 and
What's early?
and exactly. So, it wasn't bad. Even when it did start to fill in as we were sitting there, it was never bad. We never had to wait.
Cool.
There was a fantastic bakery, right near the hotel. We went there a few times, and even at its busiest time, we didn't have to wait more than 2 or 3 minutes. So it was
cool.
it was fantastic. But so I want to ask you something, and maybe I'm sorry, I'm very itchy today,
Yeah.
and I don't know why.
Oh, well.
Probably because I mowed my lawn yesterday. For those of you who aren't watching, I'm sitting here scratching my arm, scratching my head. I'm just very itchy. Anyway,
did you shower? Have you showered?
I did shower several times. What I was saying? Oh, tell me I don't know if you know this, but I learned the origins because you were talking about shots. I learned the origin of the term shot, having a shot at the bar, shot of whiskey.
Oh, okay.
Specifically a shot of whiskey, actually. So here is what I was told is the history, and it makes sense to me. So I'm going to bet that it was right. But if you guys want to look it up and make sure that it is, I would love that, and give us some feedback. Head up to PoddiMouths.com. You can leave your feedback up there. Go to our social media networks and leave your comments there. Instagram, Facebook. I actually tend to respond to Instagram more than anything else, but you're welcome to ask us anywhere. Anyway, where shot comes from. So back in the old times, Old West, a cartridge for a 6-shooter was, and I don't know what the exact price is, so I'm just going to pick 30 cents. I think that's even more expensive, but I'm just going to pick 30 cents, folks. So bear with me. It's probably not the right price, but the cartridge itself was 30 cents. A shot of whiskey was also 30 cents. So if a farmhand was going to the bar and was short on cash, they would hand the bartender one of their shell cartridges, which was worth the shot of whiskey. And that's where the whole word, the term shot of whiskey came from.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's terrific. It was probably 5 cents if I had to
bet.
It
was probably something. Yeah, it was maybe 2 cents. It was ridiculous.
It was. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't want a shot of whiskey for even 30 cents would be a great shot of whiskey.
If it was a decent whiskey, but there was
if it was 2 cents for a regular shot of whiskey and 30 cents, that had to be the premium,
You would think, or they were just trying to gouge you in the old West.
In the old West.
Exactly. I instantly my mind goes to Tombstone.
Why not? That's what it's supposed to look like, I guess. Yes. But there are a lot of other similar things. Anyway,
cool.
So we were talking about travel, and just before I got on here, I told you that I had checked into my flight, and it was I did go ahead and upgrade to first class because why not? It was $47, and I don't have status on American Airlines, so I don't like being in Group 6. And I mean, even I guess I have enough status where I'm not in what is the last one, Group 9. But, Group 6 is not fun to be in.
And I'm with you. I don't like the late boarding just because I know you as well. We never check bags or very seldom check bags. So we're carrying on, and I don't want to fight somebody for a carry-on spot. I mean, I will, but I don't want to. So
let's be fair. Who are we fighting? Because seasoned travelers, you're not fighting. A seasoned traveler knows they get to their seat. There's a space above it. That's where they put their stuff. If they have any extra, they'll put it under their seat, or they can fit it up there. It's the people that don't travel very often that will see the very first open spot, even if their seat is all the way in the back. They'll put their bag up above, let's say seat 12. They'll put their bag up at seat 12, even though they're sitting in seat 30, and takes up all the space.
I've seen flight attendants fight that recently.
I have to.
So all we've been traveling of late, I guess the last probably 5 or 6 flights has been on Allegiant, and I'm not. And if I had my ding, I don't travel with it. I would
Why not?
Give them props. I should. They'd kick me off the plane. What is that? Shut up, ding. Because their flights leave out of a small airport half an hour from our house. So it's Punta Gorda. It's the most convenient. And these are all direct flights we've been on. I've had no connections for the last several because it's just a smart way to go. So there is no first class on Allegiant. But I always, I don't have status on any, I guess I do on Delta, but I don't fly them very much because it's always a connection. And if I can avoid a connection, you know the rule, try and avoid it if you can and fits in the business budget. But these guys have been really good about, I always sit in an exit row. So Lisa and I, when we're traveling, I get her in an exit row. Both of us, we pay extra for it on Allegiant, but you also board a little earlier with an exit row too. So that's fine. That's, I kind of like that because I'm not the last to board. I'm always going to get, room for my overhead, and that we pay extra also for carry-ons. But what happens when you board on an exit row, there's always flight attendant stuff up there. And sometimes it's, the demonstration stuff, but also sometimes it's their luggage. So I'll get as close as I can to my seat, but I don't apologize for throwing that. Well, that's not aligned with your seat. Tough. Sure. Suck it up and have, So most of that stuff is right. But as you said, if it's somebody who's way in back, and I saw it last week, and they try to put something right up front, and why are you doing that? You have no idea if there's room back there, and so
and I feel bad for those folks that have to go backwards to put their bags up because someone's already taken their spot.
Me too. Although
that sucks.
It does, but the good part is when they're deplaning, most people, myself included, will ask how far back is it. And sometimes sometimes 4 or 5 rows.
Just bring it forward.
Hey, could you grab the, and we'll just hand it over. It's no big deal.
But that's another example of people that are seasoned travelers versus people, because then you get the people that will run up to the front of the plane right when everyone's starting to get up and deplane. And it's like,
you still see that?
All the time. And it pisses me off so much. Well, it also depends on the airline. So I didn't see that very much in United.
Explain what you mean by that, because some people might not get it.
So let's use the example of someone I will say it's been very rare if I'm back further than 12 on any larger flight or
the point is you land and you get you taxi to the jet bridge and the seatbelt sign goes off. What happens?
Then you've got people who are in the back who are like, let's say seat 30, who will get up, grab their stuff, and they'll bolt up to try to get further and before the doors even open to get further up so they don't have to wait so long. It's like, why?
It's just
now you got people pissed off at you.
Exactly. It's so rude.
Yep.
And what did you save? I mean, honestly, if the door opens, go ahead. You go first. Nobody's going to do that.
Nobody's going to do that. It's, one thing though, it makes me feel a little bit, I've never seen any of them get into first class from back there.
What do you mean?
Because the first class people, they're up in a heartbeat. So they block the aisle.
Because they usually fly.
Because they don't want it. Yeah, exactly. It's so funny, but it's so annoying at the same time. But I know traveling, especially in the summer, is interesting because the bulk of the travel is not necessarily business travel or the days that. So recently, I usually fly on Monday or Tuesday, and I usually come home either Tuesday or Wednesday. But I've had some longer trips, so I've left on Monday, come home on a Friday or even a Thursday. I hate flying into Nashville on a Thursday night because that's when everyone for the weekend is coming because they want Friday, Saturday, and then they'll leave out on Sunday. It's horrible flying in, to Nashville. But it's, the nice thing is on Mondays and Tuesdays, it's usually business travelers. And it makes life a lot easier.
On Thursday as well?
No, because most people in Nashville will come home on a Wednesday so they can avoid all of the crap that comes in on a Thursday. And again, it also depends on the airline. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I think I've mentioned that I've switched regions and I was the central region person that did my job. And, that's when I flew United most because that's where all of the United hubs were. So a lot more business people on United. versus where I fly now, which the bulk of where I fly is Raleigh, North Carolina. And the easiest, best flight, cheapest flight is usually on Southwest. And you know how much I love Southwest, but not a lot of business travelers on Southwest in comparison. But sometimes I fly American, like this time I'm flying American. So I expect more business travelers than I do just, people that are going on vacation. I do not. And that's one of the reasons. So even though the visits that I have, and some of my coworkers were, trying to get me to fly to other airports that are a little bit closer, like not Charlotte, but Greenville. Is it Greenville?
Yeah, Greenville.
I don't remember.
Spartanburg. GSP.
But so I flew in there once, but there was a connection. And so it's actually easier because most of the places that I go are within 2 hours from Raleigh. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but let's say within 2 hours. It's easier for me to fly to Raleigh direct, get a rental car and drive to wherever I'm going than it is to fly to wherever, because let's see, the last time I connected, it was either I connected once out of Washington, D.C., I connected once out of Atlanta, and I connected once out of Charlotte. And you'd think Charlotte would be the easiest, but you're literally flying over where you're going to Charlotte to fly back.
Yes.
And it's usually, an hour layover plus another hour flight. So I'm in the same boat. So why not just do a direct flight where it's not that hard because it's only an hour flight.
And then the other part of it is you don't mind driving. Yeah,
I don't mind driving at all.
That part. So I do. Let me give you the flip side of that. We flew into Asheville, and we'll fly out of there tomorrow, God willing. It was. You've seen, like I have, plenty of airports under construction over the years. Yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I live with one that's been constantly under construction since I moved here.
It has, but different segments, phases, you might say. And what they're doing in Asheville, they've been working on the parking part for at least a year, it seems like.
Okay.
And now they're doing the airport itself, the terminal, rental cars, everything is everything at once. And I'm just like, why wouldn't you take chunks? And just about everything is under construction. So you land and the gates are under construction, and then you get to luggage claim, and that, not that I go there, but I walk by it, and that was messed up. And then you have to go down this kind of a winding pathway. I had my rental car company, as you are, we're a status with that. And so I usually just go to where they're renting the cars, go to the window, say, here's my name, pick one of those, off you go. And so I was kind of expecting that. We had to stand in line with everybody else. And it took almost an hour from the time we got in the line to get a rental car key in my hand. It was just ridiculous. So we're calling our friends and, oh yeah, we just got here at the rental car place. We'll probably be there. I saw the line. It's going to be an hour and a half.
Oh man. That's that's a really crazy. It's a really great point too, because some of these smaller airports, they don't have the walk to your car and just pick it. They have the kiosk and you have to wait, and that's a pain in the butt.
Yes.
Raleigh doesn't have that. Raleigh is you go pick the car you want and drive away.
Good call.
Which, by the way, Jen has never experienced that before.
Oh, nice.
So I rented a car because we were going. The reason we did that is that week we dropped Peyton off at my in-laws because she had she spends a week with them every summer. We call it Camp Nana Papaw. Very, very southern, right? Very East Tennessee.
Yes, sure.
And then I had to work in Bristol, so Jen came with me. We planned all of this well ahead of time so we could, do it all in one. So to make it easier, I rented a car. And but Jen has never experienced that. And I wanted her to pick the car because I told you the whole thing is when I turn in the Jeep, we're probably going to get her a car with it. And she doesn't necessarily know what she wants yet. So I let her, Nashville now has opened up spots in the garage where you can park for 30 minutes for free. So we parked the car up there. She came down to the rental place. And then I said, let's go pick it. And I just started walking. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, come on, just pick your car. And we walk up and down, and we ended up actually, strangely enough, on a Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xe. which is what we ended up trying. It was actually the only really truly nice car there. They didn't have a big selection. So I said, she said, let's do this one. I said, okay. And I walk and I get in the car and I said, I'll meet you at home. And she's like, wait a second, don't you have to go? What's going on here? Like, this is how it works. And she's like, are you serious? Nice. Yeah. You just pick your car and you go. That's the benefit of status.
Well,
she has never seen it. She was just completely blown away.
Well, and on with that company, it's really not even. You just sign up for it, and as long as you do all the pre-work and everything, you don't have to rent 100 times a year or anything.
No, you don't.
So it's status by doing the legwork, which is status what we do
in that.
And the other people, and that's why I was distraught in this line, because other people did not. They just went and oh hi, here's my driver's license, and here's my. So it's people who don't do it all the time, they don't understand the benefit, I guess. So anyway.
Right. And status with this particular, this is national, by the way. Yes. And national and enterprise are the same. So I've got status on both. I usually lean towards national. But national, the status, what that gives you is more buying power. So if you just sign up, you get the Emerald lane and you can go pick your car. But if you have executive, then there's another lane called executive, and it's usually full-size cars or SUVs or
that's true.
4xEs with the leather seats, so you can get Rubicon Wranglers and stuff like that. So it gives you a higher level car once you get status. But
I
just
guess
for
it really
general,
depends
you're
where
absolutely
you
right.
are. We ended up
that too,
because we couldn't select and just walk in. They were nice enough when I finally got to the counter.
Sure.
Seriously, it just took forever. But she was nice enough. She says, well, would you want A or B or something else? So I ended up with a Nissan Rogue, which I had not driven yet. And I am quite impressed. It's really an impressive vehicle. And we've enjoyed having that. Although the one thing that was really a problem for me was the USB connections. Are USB-C, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And seriously? And there's no option for a B. There's not a B anywhere that I could find anyway.
Not anymore.
And if you're not familiar with it, listeners and viewers, it's the small connection that you use in your phone is the same small connection that you use to plug into the vehicle.
Yeah.
So if you want to use, Apple Auto or Android, which I do, it's or CarPlay. I guess it is Android Auto.
Yeah.
You can't do it if you don't have the right cable. I didn't have the right cable.
Well, you can with the new ones. You can do wireless, so there's that. But it's interesting as you're buying new phones.
So it's a Bluetooth connection. Yeah.
Yes.
A Bluetooth connection. I tried to use the QI charger. That didn't work either, so I'm going to have to figure that out. It might be because of my case, but that's weird.
It could be. So with a lot of those, a lot of the newer phones and stuff, I don't have any cables. I can't find a USB-C with a USB, what is it, A? Or USB-B?
But I'm not sure.
No, it's a B. Yeah. I think it's a US.
Whatever it is.
Whatever
you might be right.
I have a couple, but I had to go seek them out. Mine are USB-C to USB-C. So
really?
When I get into a car that doesn't have a USB-C, which is becoming more and more rare, I don't have any way to plug in.
Huh.
So I have the same problem, just in a different way.
So you just need two.
But I have
cables,
one cable.
Though. That's all you need.
Well, that's the thing. In my Wrangler, I actually have a cable in there because my Wrangler doesn't have wireless CarPlay. The new ones do, but mine doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
My Wrangler, so I got this cable from Walgreens where it actually has the big USB on a wire with the small USB in it. So if you have one of those, you just plug the USB-C into the adapter and it's all connected.
Got it.
So yeah, I can use it either way. And I thought that was a pretty clever little workaround.
It is.
That's so you have solution. Your little adapter.
It's just, it just seems like they talked about this for years, that they were going to have a standardized plan, and then suddenly
that's
somebody else decides.
That's what they're doing. They decided to go to USB-C.
They should have done that 5 or 10 years ago. Yeah. And so it doesn't make it standardized when half of the population doesn't do that.
Yeah.
And if you get it anything older than a 2022, let's say, it's not going to have the C to C connection.
Right. But they do that because now they can make more money because you have to go buy
Well, yeah,
adapters.
that's kind of Apple's thing as well, because it's the planned obsolescence of what you currently have.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
Yeah, welcome to the world.
It's so annoying.
Yeah, it is, but whatever. We still use it.
Oh yeah, all the time. Well, yeah, well, here's the other thing: is that the airplanes don't have USB-C yet. At least ours don't. And so you either have a plug, but now some of them have USB, but it's the USB. I'm going to call it A. I don't know what it is. The USB A.
So for what? For what?
For charging.
Like headphones? Oh, for charging.
No, for charging. For charging. Yeah. Well, headphones, it barely works, but some of the United flights, and I think one of the Delta flights that I flew on, they have Bluetooth, so you can use your AirPods, but they only connect like a quarter of the time correctly.
I never use their stuff anyway. I mean,
I don't either.
It's
I'm usually on my phone or my iPad.
Yeah, my iPad or something. Yeah. So anyway,
cool.
Hey, there's only one thing
fun.
left to talk about because we haven't really discussed it since our last live PoddiMouths, and that is what did you think of the debate?
Oh, you mean the elder abuse? The downright, why did this happen? Elder abuse?
Did you see the stuff of the video footage of? I'm sure you have, of Dr. Jill Biden after.
Yes.
What on earth?
You mean President Jill Biden?
I think that's what she would like, but I'm not sure. I think, and look, I understand that power is. People get into those positions and they don't ever want to let go. And if you don't believe me, I've got 2 words for you: Chuck Schumer. And he's not the only one. I mean, there are so many out there in Congress, and they're not just on the left. Believe me, they're on both sides. They just can't.
Oh yeah,
they could not stand to let go of the power once they've had it. Crazy.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a drug. Power is a drug. They've always said that. With great power comes great responsibility.
Great responsibility. My goodness.
Yeah, no, it was an absolute shit show, and the interview afterwards was not any better. On the Friday interview with Stephanopoulos. Oh my God, it was bad. It was so bad.
Did you get the great quote that they actually edited out in the transcript? It's the goodest job.
Oh, I didn't hear that one. That one's fun.
The goodest. It's the goodest job.
I mean, it's when you've got and that's the biggest thing, when you've got your own party coming after you saying you need to go. This isn't going to work.
So this is
just keep refusing to do it.
We don't need to dwell on this because I think everybody sees it for what it is now, but they didn't before. And that's on the media. If people did not pay attention before and suddenly they're saying, I watched the debate and wow, I'm surprised how far he's fallen. Nobody who's followed him and anybody outside of the MSM are going to say, wow, I'm really shocked. Because we're all going, that's the guy. That's the guy. And everybody else was like, whoa, I had no idea. Well,
well, and he keeps saying, it was just a bad night. It was just a bad night. Okay, let's do another debate. Let's move that September debate up and see if you have another bad night.
No, it was painful to watch.
It was painful.
I promise you that if there is another debate, they will not do the split screen.
No.
When Trump is
Did you see the Jon Stewart? The Jon Stewart breaking it down?
I saw.
Oh my God, that was so funny.
Bit of that, yeah.
Oh, wow. So funny. He did a really good job of kind of explaining it too. I mean, it was really funny.
I saw some of that.
But man,
he's one of the guys where you go, did he not know? And if so, or if not, why didn't he know?
Yeah.
Going in,
right.
That this was a thing. So
I'm sure
I don't know what they're going to do.
I don't put a lot of credit into no one knew. It was everyone knew. They were just not willing to admit it. And now you can't hide it, so you have to admit it.
They had to be freaking out about the debate then.
The thing is, here's my take on that. If you look at it and you go, well, you know what? Biden at this point can't beat Trump. What's the alternative? Kamala. Kamala can't beat Trump. So it's either he stays and loses and goes, well, I didn't win because of everything that just happened, or he leaves and Kamala loses and he can go back and say, well, if I would have stayed, I could have won.
Mm. I'm not sure there's an easy out for any of it. And I think we both know that if there is any path, they will take it. If there is any
Yeah.
path that keeps Trump out of the White House, they will take it.
I need to do a little bit more research before I can back up this statement, but I really truly think the only person that could have a chance at beating him, well, aside from Kennedy, I think if Biden were gone, I think Kennedy could have a chance at beating him. I do think he has a chance. But outside of that, the only other person I can think of that could possibly beat him would be Gavin Newsom.
I think that's impossible, but who knows?
I don't think it's necessary. I didn't say it was going to happen. I'm just saying that is the only person I think that could have a chance.
Sure. Well,
if they really worked hard.
If they're looking for a persona, they want the slick back hair and that.
Yeah.
That's it. Do you want somebody who? And this is the whole. All of their talking points surround Trump. He's Hitler, and he's already been in office for 4 years. He didn't Hitler anybody then. He didn't do anything outrageously crazy. We had in energy independence. We had the lowest people of color unemployment for 40 years. And they're just talking just stupid crap like he's a horrendous person. And I just don't get that. I don't why anyone would buy into that malarkey. Thanks, you're welcome. I don't understand. So anyway.
That was a debate callback, folks.
We don't need to beat it to death, but it will be interesting to see what strings are pulled, what things are done to give them a shot. Because you're right now, straight up, there is no way. I don't think that.
I think we'll have a lot more answers this coming week.
We may, and we'll see what happens. And as it goes, it may change. It'll be kind of fun for you and I to see if we can anticipate stuff. Yeah, what might happen. And
what do you think is going to happen? Now, let's.
Really, we have to do it on the spot. I think.
Well, just so I will adjust if we need to. Hell, the mainstream media does it all the time.
I think it won't be Kennedy because there are some powerful people on the left that don't like him, and let's just say hate him.
Well, they didn't give him. He is the first presidential nominee in history.
Yep.
In history, folks, to not be granted Secret Service protection. And his family had two people that were assassinated.
Ever. That is a prime indicator of the worst that this power structure could possibly do. It's inexcusable. So that said, I do not agree with most of his policies. I agree with a lot of his vax stuff. But I don't with most of his other policies because he's a liberal, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
But he's a Kennedy Democrat.
Well, he is.
He's a little bit, which means he's a little bit more centrist
of some of that, but certainly more centrist than what seems to be in Washington these days. So I don't think he's the guy. I think that you're right. It's probably going to be if they can scoot things around. See, the problem is Biden has the delegates. He's been the nominee. He is the nominee. So for him to change that, that means he has to assign delegates, and I don't know how that flies. So I think
the only way he could legitimately do that is to let Kamala take it. That's the only way.
And they don't want that. I don't think.
Well, she'd lose. They know she'd lose.
Well, there's a reason for that. So we'll leave that aside. I think that I'm encouraged that maybe Trump might get back in, and I think that I honestly do, regardless of what side you're on. I think that would be a good thing for the U.S. and I hope that that's kind of the way things go. If it doesn't, I think we're in trouble depending upon what happens out of it. I really do. I think that the country is in big trouble if there gets to be somebody who is on the far left, because I'm not sure we can recover from some of it.
Fair enough. So my thought is.
So you, yes.
My thought is, I think in the coming weeks they will replace Biden with Kamala. That's my bet. And I think that's going to open up a really tight race. And again, my own personal opinion, a really tight race between Kennedy and Trump. don't want to call which one I think would win. I really don't, because if with Biden out of the way, I don't know what that does to the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that I think Kennedy has a chance at that point, but only at that point. If they went and picked Newsom, I don't think Kennedy's the person. I don't think he even has a chance. But with Kamala there, I think he actually has a chance.
Who would her VP be?
We'll see. Who's for VP? Oh, I don't know. No one.
That's
no one
the
good.
other thing to think about.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it, and I think that's one of the reasons Trump hasn't announced his.
What if Newsom's her VP?
That makes it tough. That makes I don't think so. You know what? If they were able to choose Gavin Newsom as the presidential candidate, keeping Kamala, I think they would have a better chance than if it were the reverse.
It's so tough to say. Yeah, I'll be interested. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, because we will talk more about it in our upcoming PoddiMouths. But I think it's going to be interesting, if nothing else. I hope it's on the up and up. You know what? There are every other country in the world, when they have votes, that's not that's a democracy, at least, or strives to be. They have in-person ID voting. That's every other country. But not us. We've got mail-in ballots, and we've got all this crap that sets it up to be, because there's plenty of crime in Washington. I know that's a shock to some of you. But yeah, I think we need to get back to that. There cannot be anything. And again, the biggest thing, you can ignore it all you want, but Philadelphia had 103% voter turnout. Seriously? You have more voters than you have people registered to vote? Come on. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah. Where's Fetterman from?
Philly, I think, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I was going to say. Sure. I mean, that he's one of the loudest right now, at least that I've heard. One of the loudest supporters of keeping Biden out of all the Democrats, and I think it's really funny that you say that, and that's where that statistic came from.
Yes, and I'm not sure what that means. What I'll say in Fetterman's defense is that he is 10 times the candidate he was when he got into the Senate. He couldn't put a sentence together, and they, God bless them, did something to help him overcome whatever the outcomes of the stroke or whatever he had.
Yeah.
He has become a voice, and while I mostly don't agree with his policies, at least he's reasonable, and he can have a conversation without making himself look like he's a criminal, because he's not.
Well, except for the hoodies he always wears. I mean,
that should be criminal.
That should be criminal, especially his. Well, I'm going to throw one more thing out there before we go, and I think this is one thing that frustrates me a lot is they keep referring to age. He's an elderly man, blah 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 blah, and then they point to Trump. Well, he's only a couple years younger, but which is true.
Yep.
Age is a fickle bitch. Let's just put it that way, because.
Okay.
The comparison that I heard, and I thought was a really good comparison, is it has nothing to do with the age number. It has to do with the age, how age is actually affecting you, the physiology of it. Because if you look at Harrison Ford, Harrison Ford is a good-looking 82-year-old. He's a year older than Biden.
Mm-hmm.
If he was running for president, no one would bat an eye, because he's with it. He's got all his faculties. He's in good shape. He's in good health. And he looks like he's in his early 70s.
Mm.
That's an 82-year-old versus an 81-year-old President Biden, who he looks like he's 90.
Yeah.
And The Office does that to you. Someone made a really good example that I was talking to earlier. You look at Obama, who was relatively young when he started as president, and then 8 years later he came out of office, and he looked like he was aged more than just 8 years.
They all do.
It's
Bush
the
is
job.
The same way. And it is.
Yeah, it's the hardest job in the world.
But Biden's part is not the job. And I'll tell you that is he hasn't been doing the job. I have no proof of that, but I have a lot of proof of that.
Conspiracy theories abound.
Well, whether it is or it isn't, I think anyone who pays attention knows that there's no way this guy is whatever. Let's move aside from that for a moment. But I truly believe that he has a progressive disorder. And I don't mean that in a judgmental way.
No, that's kind of my point.
Abuse. It is.
Yeah.
This is a guy who people looking on say it's a condition that is causing him to not be able to perform. And you can see in just how he looks when he walks with his fists like this. It's very consistent with someone who has early stage Alzheimer's or some other ailment like that.
Yeah. Well, and it can go fast. My stepdad is a perfect example. He retired from being a physician at 72 years old. At 72 years old, he could do 100 push-ups, and he did every morning. He could do 100 push-ups. He could run laps around me, and I was only, I was in my 20s. So and semi-athletic, less athletic than I was when I was 18, but still, I mean, he could run circles around me. And then he died at 78. I think he was 78. I could have that one wrong, but he died of Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And he was just a shell of the man. And it happened so fast.
Yeah.
I mean, that was 6 years. 6 years he went from doing 100 push-ups a day to a shell.
Wow. Yeah, it can happen.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, and I look at people like Harrison Ford or my dad, who's 76.
Yeah.
My dad could probably still run circles around me at 76 years old. But who knows in 10 years what that's going to be like? Who knows in 20 years?
For all of us.
So for all of us, exactly. You know, my wife's grandmother is 93. How old's your mom? I think they're the same age.
95.
95. So she's 95.
95.
And I mean, she's still outside walking every day. And I mean, diminished. There's not a lot that she can do anymore.
Sure.
But still. So I think there's, as you said earlier, physiology plays a big part. And there are some people, there are 60-year-olds that I know that can barely move.
Yeah.
And probably couldn't become president. You know, they just don't have the faculties. It has nothing to do with your chronological age. It has to do with your physical age. And his physical age just isn't there.
So we'll revisit
elder
this.
Abuse.
We'll revisit this in our upcoming episodes because we'll have clearly more information and a better glimpse, I think, into where things are going. But
hopefully,
at least,
like I said, this coming week is going to be very telling.
Yeah, I just don't want to give him any ideas. Hey, did you listen to the PoddiMouths? They think we should do this.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're on your own.
Yeah. Well, maybe we're saying certain things on purpose because we know that.
Hey, wait a second.
Maybe it's all a conspiracy.
A lot of those people are listening to us, I'm sure, just to be safe.
PoddiMouths, the conspiracy.
Yes, no doubt.
We have a new category to populate our notes from. John, fantastic as always. Have a safe trip home. Say hi to Lisa and all the folks that you're with.
Thank you.
We'll see you again next week.
Peyton. Still loving Peyton's intro to our broadcast. That's great.
I do need to clean it up and have her do it again, but yes, I love it.
She's getting older now, so she'll be better the next time around. And
yeah, exactly.
But she'll be great. It's just nice to hear her voice.
All right, everyone. You have a great week, and we'll see you again here. Same Poddy network, same Poddy channel. Yeah, something like that.
Us. See ya.
Yeah.